Yeah, go for it.
All right. We're live. Good day, my crypto friends. It's a pleasure to see you today. Today we're talking with EOS UK. We have Jim Hewitt and Roger Davies, the legends behind the scenes here at EOS UK. But we're going to talk about what makes a good block producer, what's setting EOS UK apart, and then the general state of the EOS ecosystem, because that's changing on a daily basis. So welcome, Roger. Welcome, Jim. How you guys doing today?
Thank you very much, Brandon. That's great. I've never been introduced as a legend before. a legend, maybe. But, yeah. But that's great. Really happy to be on your show. It's terrific. You're a legend, actually.
Yeah. Well, I like to throw that word around. It's I'm talking to some people who've got some real character here. So yeah, it's cool. I think there's a lot of legends in the EOS ecosystem.
So that was you're getting a lot of attention at Tulip, and that was really great to see.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's get into EOS here. You guys are doing some interesting things. So what we'd like to do is talk about just get your message out, because there's so many block producers, and what I look for is ones that are setting themselves apart and want to get their message out. So in general, why don't we start with what you think maybe the top 3 criteria for a good block producer are, how people should think about block producers when they're voting, and yeah, go ahead and
yeah, sure. I mean, it is very hard to try and set yourself apart, and I think the most important thing is why are you doing it? We keep always, and sometimes, particularly when we're thinking about doing interviews and think, oh, what we're going to say, and you tend to get a little bit nervous and think, well, if I can just really connect with my passion for this, then all of that kind of goes away, and just keep remembering the reasons why we're doing this, which, for want of a better phrase, is to be part of changing the world, and that really is my passion, and I think that's the number one thing that you should be looking for in a block producer, somebody that, not just doing it for the money, they're not just doing it because they woke up one morning and thought, oh, that seems like a good idea or a good way to earn money without having to do anything or do very much, or it's like you've got to be into this, and all of the things that it brings, or the potential that it's bringing, is really what is exciting me about it. So I think that's the number one reason, the number one thing to look for in a block producer. And I can sit and talk about that all day long.
You can talk about your passion and all the different ways we can change the world, etc., etc.
And particularly around the economics side of it, I'm really excited about that, because I started working when I was very young. I didn't really do well at school because it didn't interest me. And the way the education system worked just didn't really connect with me at all. I was much more interested in going to school because of the girls that were there and smoking fags and things like that, So mind you, just say cigarettes, don't you? Cigarettes, talking to somebody from overseas, fags.
Yeah.
Smoking fags.
Yeah. We're in California too, so there's no telling what people might be smoking over here either. So.
Yeah, after my trip to San Francisco, I really got a flavour of that. Definitely, just walking down the street, there was a lot of good stuff going on. Clearly.
Yeah, it's a interesting. The '60s are back, I think, for San Francisco.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can't do that stuff anymore. You've got so much stuff going on in your brain with the block production and stuff. It's just like, I couldn't imagine. We don't even drink, do we? So it's like
a teetotal block producing team. How about that?
Yeah.
Only drink for 3 years. Roger, you're up to
about, I think I'm seven years teetotal now. Yeah. So you just got to keep a clear mind and keep focused on these things. But what we were talking about,
being a block producer.
Yeah, you're talking about the passion that it takes to be a block producer, and that's something that comes through when you say that. I mean, there's so much going on with EOS that there's only so many hours in the day, and so this feeling that there's not even enough time to, is kind of pervasive, I think. So that that's a good point. And I saw. Kind of riffing off your passion thing there, I saw one of your videos where you have gotten out and you're doing public speaking, whereas and you basically said, you know what, I've never even done public speaking, I'm scared of it like everyone else, and but I'm out here because something finally drew me out from behind the computer screen. You know, and that's passion for EOS. I think that's pretty cool. Good example.
Exactly. Just sort of just stepping out. Sorry about the phone ringing in the background there. It's it's all right. It'll go to voicemail now. So
those are like genuine office sounds.
Yeah.
Those are good. We can pretend like we're posting. Yeah, we'll post.
I spoke to somebody earlier, and she said to me, "Oh, I'll have a go, and I might give you a call later." And I thought, "What if she's going to ring when we're speaking to Brandon?" And yeah, there she is.
Oh.
So, sorry, Karen, if you're watching, I'll call you back.
Karen.
Yeah. So yeah, coming back to the economy of EOS, that's really one of the exciting things for me, and that's what I was talking about. Starting to have work early, you know, in life, and you know, I'm 48 years old now, and I'm about knackered, to be honest with you, and looking forward to something that could make a change for, you know, the way that we're living, because I can't stop. Do you know what I mean? I can't stop working. I've basically got to keep working until I drop dead, or EOS comes good for us, you know. And I know I'm not the only person like that. I was watching one of Kent's videos last night. You know, Kent from EOS San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And been on interview with him and follow him. I love his videos because he's very passionate. And one of his guys was saying, you know, I'm 57 years old. I've been working all my life. My bones are aching, you know, but I have to get up every day and I do it for my family. And he just really connected with me, and he's bought himself some EOS, and he's hoping that, you know, it's going to move and life's going to change for him, you know. But that possibility that exists for all of us with the way EOS is set up. Have you seen the video by Brendan? Sorry, not Brendan. Dan Larimer at Virginia Tech, where he talks about a world without taxes?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
We all like that one.
Yeah. I think we all start dreaming when we hear him talk like that, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, in a way, but also, you know, if you to take that down to a microeconomy level, and this is what really gets me excited about it, is you take that model and you implant it, if you like, within microeconomies. And I kind of have this feeling that because we have to use one fiat currency across all of these different industries, that's where part of the problem exists. And if you can tokenize it down to each individual industry or market economy, then they could all operate in this kind of self-sustaining way. And that is like a little hole in that net that we're all caught in, or is the potential for us to perhaps, you know, get off the treadmill and be able to just sit back maybe just for a couple of weeks and go, you know, what would I like to do with my life if I didn't have to go to work today? What would I choose to do? And we were talking earlier about the concept of the major definite purpose in life. You know, I was watching a guy mowing the lawns, mowing the grass around here. I was thinking, no, if I didn't have to work for a living, I'd really enjoy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd do it just for the love of it, you know, because I'd do it really well. And it's that kind of thing. Everybody has inside them something that they're uniquely good at. And if we could all be living in a world where we just did that thing because we didn't necessarily have to worry about.
But we love doing it. That's
exactly.
The
yeah.
You love doing it.
You love doing it, and you're really good at it. And what a world that would be! Imagine that world. And I just think, you know, EOS has got a sniff of having the potential to give us that. So back to your original question, that's one of the things that I think makes a good block producer, is having a passion for why we're doing this.
The thing that I sort of was talking about was this notion of we're being a block producer and a block producer, and then we're going to specialise in being a block producer. There's so many, when you sort of said, why do we get into it? There seems to be so many, if you look at the block producers, they're sort of major companies where someone on a board has tasked somebody with a project to go and be a block producer, or they've got a killer DApp that they're going to run, and the block producing is a side issue to running this, what they want to do. And I just think that we're going to concentrate on being a really good block producer and promoting the strength of the EOS chain through that, and doing that first and foremost. And I think that is really, really important. I get so frustrated by seeing these people who are very technically competent, obviously, but their passion isn't being part of the blockchain. Their passion is developing on the blockchain, and I just think that's I just think that's one of our unique selling points. It's something that we must sort of push over to everybody. Is that's what we are trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. And that's the second thing I think, which is very important for looking at block producers, is the whole transparency angle. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be coming to the fore again. I mean, we've set out to be transparent because I have an existing business which we're able to sort of springboard on to become a block producer, and it was kind of a bit of a crossroads where we just finished a major project of a couple of years, and all of a sudden we're into EOS, and we're just kind of going, oh, it's perfect timing for us. And it's meant that with that history of like a 13-year-old business, I'm able to be 100% transparent about who we are. With me and Jim, I own the company.
You can phone us up.
Yeah, as you've heard.
But you guys don't answer.
As long as we're not being interviewed, we will answer it personally wherever possible.
Yeah.
Which is this has been one of our traditional business values, in which we've built the business on. Answering the phone personally. If somebody rings you up and leaves a message, you call them back and you say what you're going to do. You do what you say you're going to do. And actually, Karen, who was ringing there earlier, that's one of the things she said to me. She said, if everybody just did what they said they were going to do, running a business would be easy. And that's from her perspective, and that's why I've worked with her and her company for 7 or 8 years, because I always do what most of the time I try and do whatever I say I'm going to do. And that's just sort of these traditional business values that we built the business on. So that enables us to be very transparent, and it's coming up again at the moment with the voting that's going on. You're looking down the voter list and saying, well, who are these guys and what can we find out about them? And well, not a lot. And in some cases, you're clicking through and there's not even a website, and you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, you want to be a block producer, but you're not even putting a website up. So, I mean, that seems a bit weird. So,
well, if you think about all the work that EOS Go did with their block producer report and the portal, and the fact that we right from the start, through every one of the BP reports that Kevin and Blue Jays put out, we always hit all the ticks. And one of those basic things was you got to have a website with your face on it. And you get through now, and people still haven't done that, and that's quite frustrating, really, that can happen.
So I'm not quite sure how it's going to get dealt with, although I was sort of half involved in a conversation where Paul, our technical chap, was talking to somebody about that, and there was part of the governance system was being proposed as a solution to how that person's going to be dealt with, or how that company is going to be dealt with. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And the thing about EOS being so different, and the community, you seem to get a different kind of person involved in the EOS community than in a lot of other communities. And it's not, it's been said before, it's not new that I'm saying that, but it's so true. And some of the things that have come up within the block producer community, and then they've been voiced and they've been talked about, and then decisions have been made and they've been actioned, all within the space of 3 days. It's fantastic. So I'm sure these solutions will present themselves.
Yeah, that's been one of my favorite things to see, is the small gap in between talking about, deciding on something, and implementing it into the ecosystem. Is like it's impressive, because when you're used to say the government starts talking about maybe tweaking the tax law, and then it's 6 years later and nothing's happened, or there's just so many examples. We've gotten used to so much red tape and paperwork and barriers before anything happens. It's beautiful to see EOS just nimbly fixing problems. I think that's one of the biggest strengths
that you were challenged with, weren't you, within the education industry, in your past, the old phrase, meetings about meetings.
Oh yes, there were a lot of meetings, and the meetings that went on for a very long time, and you were never really sure when you came out of the meeting whether we'd probably achieved anything, which we probably hadn't. But the idea of EOS being nimble, it was great. It was a privilege to be at Tulip at San Francisco during the launch or the launch morning, and seeing all the guys on the computers trying to tweak things, and I've got some great photos of
the war room.
The war room, as I call it. They're all tapping away like that, and the fact that we can, you know, really do these things, it's so impressive. But when I was on the panel, I said that I can't think of any other entity or thing, or I don't know what to call it, where there can be such a worldwide communication and cooperation and collaboration, lot of C's there, and it's working. It's not fallen over and died over because there's loads of bureaucracy. These people have sort of worked together to launch this thing, and it right around the world. It is amazing. It really is something that I think we'll look back on, as we keep saying. We'll look back on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It is almost like it's gotten stronger over time. Whereas you oppose, the holes are going to be punched, they're going to knock some legs out of it, and it's going to, you know, where are the flaws? It's almost like the community continues to get stronger, and EOS has continued so far to get stronger. It's crazy to see, and like you guys said, it is a moment in time, and I try to just slow down and just really appreciate it often because. Like Dan was saying, or excuse me, Jim was saying, downstairs at the Tulip conference, you see this group of just wizards typing away on their computers, like launching the new internet. You're just sitting there looking at it like, this is so cool, right? You know, I'm so happy to be a part of this. So,
yeah.
But to get back onto EOS UK, and you know, I like that you have this focus on just block producing. You want to be the very best block producers possible, not get too distracted by outsides. It comes from this passion for EOS and what it really stands for, and this thought that everyone has something of value to add, and how can we take everyone's value and give them some sort of basically lifestyle for it. Like, everyone's got their value. What are you good at? And then let's let that, what you're good at, support you, because that can really change the entire way that the whole world operates.
So, I mean, the way the Steemit economy, works for some people, who are writing their articles and publishing them on Steemit and actually earning a living from that. I mean, that's just fantastic, isn't it? Really. I mean, what a concept. And I know there's some issues with that, and I see these things popping up like burn articles or something. I don't really understand what they are, but I guess it's something to do with trying to address the inflationary, I don't know, but clearly that's been dealt with in EOS as it's sort of Steemit version 2 in many ways. So, but yeah, it's just a sniff again at the potential of what's possible, isn't it? So.
Yeah, it is. And being the third kind of go around here for Dan as far as tweaking DPOS and rethinking all those scenarios for so many years, he gave us a great head start with that background.
Absolutely, yeah.
So even though you guys have this real focus on block producing, if things start going well and you guys get rolling and you are able to free up some resources, it sounds like you do have another project kind of on the horizon with EOS education.
It's important to mention that EOS University is going to be a separate organisation that I'm not actually going to be involved in. Jim's going to kick it off. We've got two guys already from our network who are agreed to be part of that as well. So EOS UK is going to contribute a percentage of block rewards to the university programme, and then it's not going to have anything to do with me, as much as I'd like to be involved in it.
Oh yeah, but the idea is that it's that you won't be involved in it, and that'll be my.
I've got enough to do.
Yeah, that'll be my job to make sure you're not involved in it, because the block rewards will, or whatever, the finance will support the university. And I'm an ex-teacher. I've been teaching for over 20 years in socioeconomically challenging schools, or challenged schools in Britain. So I've sort of seen I've had 20 years of dealing with very difficult environments and very challenging environments, and we sort of, I sort of saw this opportunity when Roger was talking about people were looking at community, and I was just like, hang on a minute, there's something there that we could look at and use my skills as a teacher and my network of people who are seemingly disillusioned, but very, very, very highly skilled, but disillusioned with the system, to maybe just do something. I mean, it's a Kickstarter at the moment, and we don't know where it's going to go. There's many, many different ways it can go. But I mean, being on the panel of the community panel on the Tulip, every one of the block producers said that their community project is all based around education. And so, you know, we're obviously in the right zone, we're in the right area, and you know, our idea is to create a hub of resources, all free, you know, and that's the idea. And then, but the other key thing is to, I think, start within the UK, is to get what I call boots on the ground and to get ambassadors into schools to actually start to promote the idea of what can be done on the EOS blockchain. Roger's always sort of having a go at me about saying, no, it's not just about getting computer scientists, although that would be part of it, getting young people to want to become computer scientists. If you think about the way we think that EOS is going to challenge or disrupt all economies, you're going to have to think about how the arbitration system and how the law is going to change and be challenged. And we want people to think that, oh, well, there's a job, I could become an arbitrator, you know. And at the minute, there's nobody in the world that's not EOS who will say, oh, yeah, that's a really good profession, you could do that, because they don't know it exists. So the university would help promote the idea of what's going to happen in the EOS economy, so to speak.
So basically, as the next generation, you know, come out of their education and start looking at the world of work, they're equipped with the right skills, because the way things are going at the moment, if they carry on the current trajectory, it's going to be like that. You know, it's going to be off at a complete tangent from where we're all going. And you know, so that's the idea. It's political, it's economic, it's legal, and it's computer science, and it's, you know, it's everything, isn't it? Really, the whole way our world is going to operate has the potential to be completely different from how it's functioning at the moment, and we need to make sure the next generation is skilled.
Yeah, I mean, my sort of big picture vision would be to set up a system within the UK that's then transferable to other countries. So you then get ambassadors for other countries that can jump on our model and just take and run with it. So we wouldn't be dictating to anybody what to do, but they sort of see what we've done and then build on what we've done. But the other really big thing is to be a thought leader within the education world and try and challenge governments. Lobbying governments to try and move things in a way that the EOS community thinks that they should be moved towards. But that's the idea. But we need to be a block producer, earning some revenue to fund us to be able to do that. Or if any other block producer wants to use the EOS University as their community project, then they're more than welcome to jump on board, and we'll be happy to do that.
And with it being a separate entity, you know, it can be sponsored by multiple companies, not necessarily just block producers either, you know. So
DAP producers might want to jump on board.
DAP producers or existing education providers as well. So there's lots of opportunities for it. And you know, one of the ideas that I see for a bit of cross-fertilisation, if you like, between EOS UK and EOS University is I've got this idea in my mind, this vision, if you like, of these sort of community hubs where the nodes run out of, you know. So it's like, because there'll be so many of them around the world, you don't necessarily need them to be like these military-grade data centres that your sort of nodes might be hosted out of. And you know, you could have schools and universities setting up nodes, full nodes, to relay transactions and as a mechanism to learn how it all works. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to tie in, but it's just part of the vision that I've got, and I just see, you know, there's a lacking of community in the world these days, and I don't know what it is, but perhaps maybe there's a way that EOS can help bring these communities together in like a physical way, where you have like an EOS centre or an education centre or something, you know. So yeah, that's tapping into my passions again. But you know, meantime, I've got to go do some instructional videos about you know, how to do offline voting and proxy voting, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you guys are passionate about it, both of you, and the education route is so, you know, that is so important, because the more ideas and people that we bring into EOS, the stronger it becomes. And like you said, just running nodes in universities all over the world makes it much more anti-fragile. It doesn't have to be some, like you said, military grade system to protect the nodes if they're everywhere. Yeah, that's a really cool point. How about you just started to touch on it, oh, sorry, I lost what you were saying there. You were saying something that I missed. But no big deal.
Time of day, isn't it? Did you say it's the middle of the night back there as well?
Yeah. But can you guys tell me a little bit about like your histories, or not your histories, but what you were doing right before this? It sounds like
yeah. So I mean, the legal entity behind EOS UK is my company, Advanta Productions. So and that's it was incorporated in December 2004. And basically been doing internet consultancy, web application development, and internet solutions. And that was sort of building on my experience. I started working full-time in the internet in 1995, can you believe it? Last millennium. And I was working for a company called Zara Networks, which was one of the first backbone providers in the UK. And you know, I was selling internet connections and servers to internet service providers and large corporates and banks and things. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth on domains and DNS and AS and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, after a few years with them, I ended up working for a company doing web solutions, and then I ultimately set up my own company. But as I was saying earlier, you know, I started working when I was very young, you know, and I've done all sorts of businesses. And until they invented the internet, I'd done everything, you know. Thank goodness they invented the internet. Otherwise,
you'd still be cleaning windows or washing cars.
Who knows? I mean, I've done so many different jobs, you wouldn't believe it. And you know, I sort of came out of school at 15 with not a lot behind me in terms of qualifications, and I just went straight into work, and I started, you know, I was a silver service waiter at one point, you know, and still can do that as a part of the trade. Yeah. And essentially, you know, I've been selling, you know, and I've been communicating, and that sort of led on to becoming a consultant. But there's so many different people that I've dealt with over the years from all different walks of life. That's really where I've managed to make it work, is because I've been the bridge between the technical guys and the director level decision makers. And I've seen it when you put them in a room together, they just kind of fall out with each other, you know, because they don't speak the same language really. And so I've made a career out of being the bridge between those two people, because the director level decision makers just want it done and they know what they want, and the techies are like, well, you can't do it that way, or, you know. And so it's like being that bridge, you know. So but I just kind of feel like all of my life experience, there's lots of others as well, which we haven't got time to go into, but right now. But it just kind of set me up for this being exactly what I was born to do, what I was invented for, you know. And that's just how it feels to me. And so that's, yeah, taps into my passion.
Yeah, that's it. Can you dig a little bit more into the bridge between the decision makers and the tech, and kind of how specifically you make that happen? Because I think that's something that we see a lot in the blockchain space. We have it's so technical, but then there's people trying to start businesses. But so how specifically, like, what do you do to bridge that gap?
There's no magic to it, you know. The formula is quite simple. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's the proportion in which you should use them. So you listen twice as much as you talk, and if you do that on both sides of the discussion, you know, basically you have that discussion with the technical and that discussion with the decision maker, and then, but not at the same time, because that never works. and then you sort of relay it on. And if there's an issue that is a genuine issue, then you just have to communicate it and deal with it.
I mean, I think that the things that Roger's doing with the videos on how to vote, and I just watched one, I don't know whether you published it yet, on how to vote on the scatter.
No.
And that's
secret.
Oh,
no,
sorry.
I'm kidding.
But he's sort of like, he talked through it, and I'm not a tech guy in whatsoever. I left school many years ago with no qualifications at all. I went to work, and then I went to night school and got retrained and trained as a teacher, and ended up as a senior leader as a teacher. So I was sort of self-taught and self-motivated in that sense. So I come in with no technical background at all, and I think one of my skills is to even take what Roger did for people for public consumption, so to sort of like really think about what they're going to say. We've got a thing on the screen. Is that important? That's gone. So
I think it said your internet connection has gone down.
Oh, right, okay, but we're
are you still there, Brandon?
We're still looking good.
Oh, good. So this notion of being able to communicate to people is really important. And if you go on our website, you'll see our very first meetup that we did, and there's me and Roger both with microphones, both answering questions. And I've only been in the company for about 4 years now, isn't it? That sort of thing. And my biggest fear was that I didn't have enough technical skill. And Roger said, you don't need technical skill. I'll give you that. We just need your sort of other skills, and that's what I'm using. Yeah. And that's what we're getting there. And
we're about communicating.
Yeah,
really.
We're putting ourselves out there, and we're taking the time to try and explain this process to people. There's a massive rush at the moment to get everyone voted in and to get right to the top of the list, and I'm a little bit sceptical about that. I think we ought to just take back and just take a beat a little bit and just make sure all the tools are out there and people can breathe and actually listen to what other people are saying, and just sort of move through this process as smoothly as we possibly can, because it's so early. It's just so early.
Yeah, and there isn't, apart from perhaps Dan Larimer and his kind of peers, there aren't really very many experts out there. So we're all just doing our best, aren't we? We're all just learning it as we go along, and that's kind of, in a way, it's one of the really nice things about it, and also that's one of the nice things about the internet as well, as it came along, and because there wasn't really very many experts, and so all you needed to do was just immerse yourself in it and start absorbing it and find out what works for you, and then share that with other people, not necessarily as a recommendation of this is exactly the way you've got to do it, but just this is what I've done, and that's this is what's worked for me, and that's really all we've done.
Yeah, so it sounds like being heavy on the communication, good listening skills, obviously sales, and being able to communicate is a huge part of it.
Yeah,
and that makes,
and you need that mental clarity as well in order to be able to because they are complex subjects, but if you break them down into their small components, then they're manageable, provided you've got that mental alacrity, if you like, to be able to do that. And that's why I get to bed early, I get up early, I don't drink, don't take drugs, and I try to get exercise whenever I can, and not spend too many hours behind the TV, So, but it's hard work. So I'm hoping that we perhaps in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, we'll be able to just sort of dial it back a little bit, get some more people in, and share some of the workload.
Yeah, and with that communication, you've been making the videos that are on your site, and you guys have a YouTube channel as well, describing some of the tools for EOS. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll put a link for your guys' YouTube channel in the bottom also, so people can check that out.
Bless you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
Great, yeah.
Of course. And I really like the angle of education and communication, and that you guys both kind of come from a semi-education background. I know that Jim comes from fully education background. You come from a background of kind of being an educator within the tech and the decision maker community. So I think that's cool. I was a flight instructor for a long time, so
Cool.
I like the idea of taking kind of complex subjects and then piece by piece chunking them down and explaining them to someone. And so I can see how, you know, I vibe with the education aspect of it. I think that's really cool with how you guys are approaching that. So
yeah, I mean, the next generation, they're the ones that are going to be stuck with all the problems that our generation, the previous generations have created for them. So it's quite nice that we might actually be able to leave them something that is positive, you know. And I've got 3 children of my own. My wife's got 3 children. And I have 2 grandsons as well. So, you know, that is really important for me, because we need to give them something so they can function and look after us in our old age.
I'm yet to educate my daughter into EOS. My daughter's 19 and she just thinks, well, I'll get your EOS, Dad, so don't.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of work to do there, but you know, that's a work in progress, definitely.
Yeah. Well, she's in a good spot. So I have one kind of last question, and then I'll ask you guys if there's anything that we kind of overlooked that you'd like to talk about. But I'm curious, Roger or Jim, both of you guys, what the parallels that you see between the internet starting in 94, 95 and where we're at with cryptocurrency, because you mentioned that it sounds like you kind of jumped in and found a place in the internet without being super technical. What kind of similarities you see there with what we have going on now?
Yeah, well, I think it's like what I was saying, and it's such a new space. Provided you're keen and you're interested, then you know, you can dive straight in, and especially now with you know, the amount of information that's available. I mean, my stepson Anthony come to me the other day, and he's there on his phone. He says, "How do you spell such and such?" And I'm like, "You see that thing in your hand? You've got access to all of the information in the world, and even videos. You know, it's like, just look it up. Just ask Google. How do you spell it? Google. You know, it's like, and so anything you want to learn, it's all there now, isn't it? And okay, some of it might not be right, but you can get a view of, you know, a range of different views on how to do something. And there's no more unanswered questions in the world. It's just which is the most relevant answer, which one works best for you, you know. So I think that's perhaps where there's a bit of a departure from the internet, because you know, you had to try things. And, you know, one of my catchphrases, I've been breaking websites since 1995, you know, which actually doesn't promote me very well at all, but you know, the concept is that you had to break things to learn, you know,
back together again.
Yeah, to learn how they work. Whereas now you just have to Google it, don't you, and sit and watch a few videos. And top tip, if you put the videos on 1.5 speed, you can whiz through stuff like rapid application development and accelerated learning. You know, you can pick up stuff really, really quickly.
I think there is a parallel between the internet and EOS at the moment, though, as much as that the internet back in the day it took quite a long time for it to become used by everybody, and companies, mass adoption. I mean, a lot of companies were very reluctant, but you know, the first companies that got in there, you know, there's some of them are still there, and they're doing really, really well. And I think there's an opportunity in EOS being so early for maybe not end up with being the big 4 or the big 5 or whatever, but to be the big 100 and the big 200 or 300. So everyone's benefiting from it more. And I think that, you know, we've got to go out and promote EOS to every business and, you know, every DApp developer to get people working and building on the chain, because unless people are building on the chain, it's not going to work anyway. So that's part of our role but I think to realise that we are so early in this, and getting mass adoption is, you know, the key, and for cryptocurrency in general as well, isn't it?
I think that points to like the challenges with voting at the moment. One of the videos I enjoyed watching was Anton Antonopoulos. You know, he's like the ambassador of Bitcoin, and he talks about when he sent his first email, because he's obviously been involved in the internet space for a long, long time, and it was like with the old dial-up modems and the command line. You know, sending email via a command line, compared to now where your grandma goes whoosh, and it's gone, you know, from the iPad. And that's, you know, we're right at that early beginning, aren't we? With voting, literally is command line only. And then just like every day, there's these new tools that are sort of just starting to emerge, and people going, "Ooh, is it safe, you know, and
Mhm.
people looking at it and trying it, and you know, so it is very, very early, and I think that's you know, one of the similarities with the internet boom, if you like. But yeah, it's getting there. I expect it will go a lot quicker than the internet adoption.
Yeah, it's almost like the internet kind of paved the way, or what the adoption curve looks like. And these people, a lot of people that are in EOS now or in cryptocurrency now are saying it's like the internet, almost like maybe we kind of know how to do this, and we can take the steps a little bit faster this time.
Yeah.
And maybe fulfill some of the promises that we kind of had with the internet, where it was going to, change the world. It was going to give everyone information so that, bring a lot of people out of poverty, and, maybe close some income gaps in these promises of the internet that didn't quite come to fruition because who knows why. But the coolest thing I think about EOS is this idea of unlocking value within every person and having them be able to be compensated directly for their value. I think is just can be revolutionary. And say if a lot of wealth is centralized in one coin, let's say, and a lot of people are holding one coin, well, it's real easy to spin off a new cryptocurrency or a new version that unlocks a specific value for a specific person for just something that they're good at, that they don't need to, basically pull any wealth out of Bitcoin per se. They can pull it from just a brand new spot. And, I think that dynamic's going to really be crazy to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Airdrops, basically, isn't it? And I mean, I could sit and talk about that all day, but it's having a token for each economy. I just think it's fantastic, and the way that companies can come in now and just sort of do an airdrop and raise, not necessarily raise money, but create value.
It's about creating value, isn't it? And to be able to create value and create value, or an economy around that, around what you're trying to do. This idea of adding value is really important.
But as well, sort of going back to what you're saying, the internet has changed the world, hasn't it? Significantly, and maybe it hasn't delivered on all of the promises, and maybe EOS won't deliver on all of its promises either. But it's, we're sat here having an interview over video conference, for example, and we just now accept that as every day. And every company, or certainly in the block producer space, has got like 10 social platforms that they're publishing on, and I mean, it has massively changed the world, hasn't it? Email and all that kind of stuff that we just take for granted now. Online banking, for example, I mean, that's fantastic as well, even though it's the old system. That represents such a huge leap forward. And we were talking the other day about online shopping as well. I mean, here in the UK, we're so lucky because pretty much every property in the UK has an address. If you go on Amazon.co.uk, buy something, and be here either the same day or next day. It covers the whole of the UK, and you just think, why do anybody go shop anymore? And that's phenomenal, and that's just like, we just take that for granted. And 5 years from now, what are we going to be taking for granted that EOS has brought along? It's like, I've got an idea, I'm going to do an airdrop this afternoon, boom, there it is, let's do it, and that could be the reality of it.
Yeah, that's a good vision. Is 5 years from now, looking back, what there's things we can't even imagine right now that they will have thought of and developed. That'll be interesting times, to say the least. So what do you guys have to add? We got about 5 minutes left here. What do you guys got to add as far as anything we kind of glossed over that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think kind of the top topics of the moment are voting, clearly. So we've achieved the 10% voting now required. So a couple of days maybe, we're going to be looking at EOS being unlocked. And there's that thing we talked about earlier, which is people's reluctance to vote because of private key fear and not wanting to import their private key into anything, which is fair enough. But I just wanted to talk about how people are beginning to understand how the private key is used to sign the transaction, and that transaction is then sent. So using scatter, using grey mass, using liquid EOS, and these kinds of tools like desktop tools, and even the offline voting tool, I think it's Tokenica come up with that. I need to have a look at you can create an offline vote on a computer that's not connected to the internet, and then you can send the transaction off. And so that kind of demonstrates how that's working. And one of the things I realised, or I was thinking about, we needed to communicate to people, was that because of the tokens that are being voted have to be staked, so that means that they're locked. And so anybody that's kind of worried about the security of their tokens can be looking at their votes. And if your votes are still present, if you like, so when you go onto a voting portal, you can still see the block producer you voted for, that means your tokens are still staked. So they're not kind of at risk at that point because they're still staked. So if at any point those votes disappeared, then there'd be this sort of 3-day window of where your tokens were becoming unstaked before they could be transferred anywhere, and that's after the network's been unlocked. So it's important to understand that voting is actually a way to help secure your tokens. If you're not planning on moving them, by having them staked and voting, then in fact you're kind of putting another layer of locking on top of them. So I thought that was something important to try and get across to people, and that's what we're going to be trying to communicate in our videos that are coming up. And the other thing is about voting, how I think it would be really nice if we could try and get some sort of philanthropic effect going on with the voting, because there's a lot of block producers out there who haven't yet achieved the minimum level to earn revenue as even a backup block producer. So rather than going into the portals and seeing who's at the top 10 or top 30 and voting for those, which was one of the exchanges was saying they're suggesting that they do that with their clients' tokens if their clients agreed. I was thinking, well, why don't you vote for the bottom 30? Because if the effect is to try and expedite the unlocking of the network, why don't we spread the love around a little bit? These guys that are at the top, and they're going to be earning $10,000 a day, 1,000 EOS a day. They've probably got enough there to keep them going for a little while. Let's focus on the places like Romania and Albania and Lithuania and India and places like that, and Africa, where you could really benefit from from having some of that EOS revenue going into these countries. And if we can just all try and focus on getting the voting playing field as level as possible, then what might happen is, as each round of block production happens, which, as you probably know, it's every 2 minutes and 3 seconds. If the votes are really equal, then you could find that you've got different block producers popping in for each round. And so instead of the top 30 just being there all the time and earning that money all the time, unless they do something wrong, if it was a much more level playing field, then you've got the opportunity for sort of some outliers to come in and spread the wealth a little bit that EOS is going to generate.
And they should decentralization. I mean,
exactly.
If the top 21 have got all the votes and they don't need any more, and there's no movement unless you do something wrong, then it's not as, I don't think that's the true vision of getting it spread throughout the world, as like you say. So yeah. I think that's, there are some people at the top who don't need any more help. They've got their own people to help them anyway. So I think the idea of helping some other regions to generate, they might not be the best block producer in the world, but if we're helping them generate income and making sure they're getting better, then that's that's the point of it.
Yeah, and it ties into the education again. Is if you generated a few blocks and you've this giving you some feedback, real world feedback, and you get some revenue coming in, and it gives you some reason to reinvest in that and keep learning and keep developing. And so I'm kind of a little bit disappointed that the voting portals that are out there are all listing the block producers by the top votes. So it's like Google all over again. Like everybody wants to be number one in Google because everybody just clicks on the top. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just being grumpy about it, as I do get.
Because we're not number one. If we were Mr. Grumpy, if we're number one, I don't know. But let's hope we would.
But it would just be nice. I mean, I was speaking to one of the guys involved in the EOS portal development today, and I was saying, why don't you just flip the list and put all the you know, the ones who've got no votes, put them at the top and see what happens. And yeah, maybe you've got some people there who's in his shed or whatever, but everybody's got to do the research before they do. Before they vote,
rather than the research the top 30.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, well, that's what I'm going to do, because you know, I mean, the videos that I've been doing, I've just got like a test EOS account with a few EOS in it. I've also got my own personal and the corporate EOS, which my vote's yet to be cast. So I'm thinking, right, let's see what we can do about that. You know, let's go out there and just share it about a little bit. And so I'm encouraging everybody else to do the same. And if the only objective at the moment is to get the network unlocked, then it doesn't matter where those votes go, as long as they go and they get placed. So let's do that, spread it around a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because like you're saying, we just want to get the network unlocked, but in reality, we don't have enough information to say who the top 21 block producers really are. It's just a educated guess at this point, but the proof's going to be in the pudding. We'll say when the main net's up and running, they're producing blocks, and there's lots of transactions and dApps and everything. When things start happening, we'll have more information. Right now, there's not a ton of information about block producers, and getting more involved, so there's more competition, will make us more anti-fragile. We'll have the education aspect. I think that's a really important point I haven't heard yet. And I mean, that's a big enough point that maybe even Block One, Mr. Dan Larimer, I'm sure he's watching with bated breath right now.
Well, of course.
so Dan, you know, maybe you guys consider taking some of that 10% of the voting power that Block One's going to have and spread that along among the, you know, the good lower level block producers to keep them basically in the race, because that's
Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be absolutely awesome if they just did that? Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, good idea. That's your idea, Roger. I can't steal it. But you know, but yeah, we'll see if Dan hears through the grapevine on Telegram or something and thinks it's a good idea. You know. So
and so just talking about the network unlocking, I think that's something there that we should all be thinking about. Is anybody that has voted and is potentially concerned about having put their private key into a interface, you know, when the network unlocks and that enables the full range of functionality, that's when, you know, all the hackers are going to then basically, all the people are going to be trying to steal the money, if you like. That's when they're going to be able to start trying to do stuff. So that's perhaps a time when people should start being a little bit more vigilant. But I was also talking to somebody today as well. Obviously, the stuff that's built into EOS, the rights of ownership, the 3-day delay, the ability to freeze accounts. There is a SOS group set up on Telegram. So if anybody feels like they've been scammed, they can get in touch, and the block producers will work together to try and freeze any accounts, you know, because that can be done, and that's, you know, that's never been available before. And there's lots of these things in EOS that's never been available before, and we've looked at them and gone, oh, that sounds pretty cool, and now I've got to get back to doing this video or setting this server up or whatever, and we're not really taking that on board. So we've got to remember, anybody is a bit anxious about, you know, the money being stolen, if you like. There is these extra layers of protection in there that are going to help. So freezing accounts, the arbitration, you know, and just basically, well, as Thomas Cox once said, you know, the blockchain itself is like immutable. So why would anybody try and do anything on it and think they're going to get away with it? Because there's just going to leave a trail that's going to be there forever. So, you know, it's important that if anybody does feel like something's gone wrong or notices anything's gone wrong, is to get in touch with the block producer, of which there's quite a few of us around, and you can find the list on the voting portals, or contact us, EOSUK.io. We'll help you if we can, you know, if anybody feels like they've got a problem.
That's great. I mean, yeah, it's good for people to know that there's a actual person they can reach out to and talk to, and that's something you guys are offering. That's very cool, very grassroots. Is there anything else you guys would like to add? We talked about the voting portal now as well.
Well, I was going to wait until tomorrow to share this information because I haven't quite put the package together yet. But to help get the chain unlocked as quickly as possible, and for anybody that is having trouble, we're going to offer free EOS technical support for voting until the chain gets unlocked. So anybody that's struggling, doesn't know how to use the tools, has got a problem, I might regret saying this, but you can ring us, you can email us, and we'll help you over Skype on a screen share as well. But only making that available till the network unlocks. So there it is. It's out there now. If anybody wants some help for free, get in touch with us via the website, EOSUK.io.
EOSUK.io, and that's a noble thing of you to do, because I'm sure some people will hit you up and you're gonna walk them through it.
A bit more.
Might regret it, but come on, let's give it a go. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are educators, grassroots, and kind of putting your money where your mouth is as far as that goes. So that's cool. Well, it was a pleasure to talk with you guys today, Roger, Jim, and I hope people enjoy the message about EOS UK. You guys are doing big things, and I like your focus. And hopefully, maybe a month down the road, after things start to pan out, we'll have you back on the show and see what the developments are with EOS and how things are coming along.
That would be very cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you.
Are you going to be coming to Oslo to the next event?
We're trying to make it to the EOS hackathon I think it's in London in maybe September.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be at that.
Definitely be there. Yeah.
London's easy for us. That's just
that's like
San Francisco that we have a challenge with. And
well, that's like when
Norway is just about doable for me. I'm like a bad, red wine. I don't travel well.
But you get better with age, at least, though. So yeah, well, it'll be like Jim coming to San Francisco. It only took me about an hour and a half to get up there. So, if I come out to London, you guys get the short trip that time. So
yeah, brilliant. Well, you can stay with us if you like.
All right.
We'll care for you while you're in England. That would be our pleasure. So put that offer out to you.
Wow, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, cheers to you guys and my crypto friends. Much love to you, and we're gonna keep looking at awesome block producers. And as the same intro, we'll give them the legendary block producers, EOS UK, and we'll put the links for your guys' stuff below so everyone can see it. And cheers, everyone.
That's so cool. Thank you so much, Brandon. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is.